Into frame. All right, so we should be good. All right, in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, and welcome to the Hero's Breath podcast. I am your always happy host, Matthew Huddle, and I am joined today by the rock star himself, David Windmiller. David Windmiller, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Very welcome.
All right, so David is a successful entrepreneur and a stunt pilot, by the way. I wanted to throw that in. The man's got an incredible career behind him, a life that he's built up very well, and something I really think you should be very proud of. So I wanted to take this opportunity to speak with you, talk about your experiences, where how you've gotten to where you are, and let everybody know, like my audience knows, I'm just a few years off the couch, but you're way ahead of me in terms of success and the work you've put in towards it. So I want to get a little bit of feel for what you've done, how you've done it, and where you see yourself going.
Sure.
All right, great. All right, so let's start in the middle. Why don't you tell our beautiful audience out there some of the things you do?
So at this point in my life, I'm 55 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The love in my life as far as things to do is flying.
Mm-hmm.
I love speed. I love anything mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
I have a great family, 5 kids.
Nice.
And they're really the number one piece. The toys come after that.
Yeah.
And number of businesses that I run. Bunch of things that I've started over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And kept up on, and brings me to where I am today. A lot of rises and falls.
Yeah, and that's something my partner and I in our podcast talk a lot about. Especially as myself, as you know, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I had a nice, long, steady, slow fall and scrape along the bottom to where I've been working to build myself back up to, I would say healthy and actually functioning levels. Functioning alcoholism is nothing to really attain. But you've done a hell of a lot more. So let's go back a little bit. So what are some of the other businesses you do? What are some of the companies you own?
Right now it's mostly real estate.
Real estate.
That's the majority of it. We have a motorcycle dealership that I'm partners in, and then we own an airport upstate New York.
Oh.
But the majority of it right now is really real estate.
Real estate. Okay, so not just around here. You mean like real estate elsewhere?
Yeah, pretty much in the Cincinnati area and Florida and Georgia and New York.
Oh, okay. All right, good. So you also mentioned a motorcycle dealership and an airport.
Yeah, the airport started out really just for fun.
Uh-huh.
It's a small airport upstate that I have a partner in, and we have a fuel farm over there that we sell fuel and some hangars. It's a very small operation. It was started out really mostly for fun, and it turned into a little bit of a business.
Okay, so I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, when my friends and I talk about doing something for fun, we usually think about, like mini golf or bowling or something. I don't know too many people personally that would start an airport for fun.
Well, it's an airport we bought, but it was kind of cool to be able to have a legitimate reason to fly to work. And it's a smaller airport. There's probably, 30 airplanes maybe altogether there.
All right.
But it's a local airport.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really cool. And that also goes to something I think a lot of other people who are more business-minded are going to get out of it is diversification.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, you say mostly real estate, but, you also have property in the sky, in essence, and a motorcycle dealership as well?
Correct. Yeah, we've had that for about 25 years now.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. So we got a successful man here. He's got multiple properties. He's got a couple businesses, and he's been going at it for decades. Where did it all start?
It started very young age. Even in high school, I started a tool repair business with a friend of mine, repairing power tools. Mechanics was kind of always my thing, and we found a need in some area to do this, so I set up a small shop in Brooklyn with a friend of mine, and we started repairing power tools. That was very early. That was probably 16 years old.
Wow. So you always had that entrepreneurial spirit within you.
I think so. I think not being lazy was a big part of it. Always wanted to get up in the morning and do something, start a job and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Just, no matter how late it got, if I started it, I had to finish it.
Right.
That was a determining factor.
Okay, so you would say that was like, wait, no, let me ask it this way. Was that genetic, or was that kind of programmed into you from your family, or how would you say that?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
Okay.
My family was definitely programmed, and my father was very, very tough about getting up in the morning, never sleeping late. It was absolutely not permitted in my family. And if we had something to do, saying no was not an option.
Yeah, you actually make me think a little bit about Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you ever read his book or familiar with it, he talked about his upbringing, how he would have to do a certain amount of yard work, and they lived on a farm, so like I guess you would say farm work, and then on top of it, physical exercises like calisthenics, push-ups, and things before he could even have breakfast, like growing up. So maybe not that extreme.
No, not that extreme, but not all that far from it.
Well, I mean, honestly, we've talked about it before, where, and again, I'm going to try to keep this, somewhat neutral, so not to have too much of a caustic message here, but that you and I have talked about how there's a lot in this current generation, where people, even I guess you would say in my generation, a little older, who don't have that same kind of ethic, that get up and go, and they haven't had it trained into them because they've been comfortable for so long. Would you say it's a generational thing, or maybe like a byproduct of our culture? Where would you kind of put the blame on that? Because we're going to call it a fact, that's it.
I'll agree with the fact. I see it very much now. And I think there's been a massive change from the prior generation to the current generation. I think that up until the generation prior to mine, it was a necessity.
Right.
If you didn't do anything, nothing happened.
Right.
You would starve.
Right.
You didn't have food to eat. You didn't have a place to live. I think my generation, it got easier, but we were still exposed to all of the people that had that issue that they had to deal with, and they imposed it and talked about it constantly, and I think it stuck with us. I think the current generation is growing up and having it, in my eyes, way too easy.
Yeah.
Mommy and daddy were successful. Mommy and daddy have a savings account. They weren't living week to week on paycheck. And they had enough of a cushion that they were sitting on, that they wanted to do the best for their kids, at least what they thought was the best for their kids, which I don't personally believe was a good thing. I think it has detrimental effects, and I think that we have created a pretty lazy generation because of it, and it's tough to go away from it, because no matter how tough of a parent you are, if your kids are in an environment with other kids that are not pushed into waking up early and doing things, and mommy and daddy give them a credit card and a car when they turn 17 and every other thing that goes along with it, it's not good.
Right, so you would say, in essence, like, and I've heard it said before, so I want to see if you agree with it, is that our culture our society, our country, has done all the right things in becoming more successful, and becoming more affluent. We have the most number of millionaires and billionaires in world history, and as an unexpected consequence of that, we've made a very soft generation to come after us.
I completely agree. I don't know where it's going to go. It's a little bit scary, because we're living on credit, we're living on other people's money, and at some point that pot will run dry.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, me personally, I see what you say is I always get wildly optimistic, especially when things get really bad, and things are pretty bad, and so I would say that we're definitely heading towards something that's not pleasant. But again, bringing it back to what Joseph Campbell realized, is that the reason the monomyth is called the monomyth, the singular myth, the singular story, is because we keep retelling it, we keep reliving it. So we get to a point where everything is great, and then things start going to shit,
Mm-hmm.
and then we fight our way back because we're human, and humans are very resilient,
Very true.
right?
Well
and
said.
Right, yeah, and we'll always figure it out. I mean, that's my little bit of rah-rah for this episode. I think I've used it all up. All right, so you're 16. You're starting a power tool repair business with some buddies from high school.
Right.
In Brooklyn. Were you renting a space? Are you working out of your garage, or?
No, I actually rented space. My father had a plumbing supply in Brooklyn,
Mhm.
and we rented a small space on the third floor from that plumbing supply, and we were able to use the customer base that he had coming in.
Okay.
So it was pretty much an audience waiting to get us going.
All right, wait. So you rented space from your dad's company?
That's right. Yeah.
All right, but right away, there's a lot of people who are going to be like, wait a second, you rented from your dad? Yes, he rented from his dad's company. This is the way business works. You got to actually put in, no matter what, you're not going to have things handed to you like that.
It was a sweetheart deal. I mean, I'm sure
Oh,
it
I'm
was
sure it
less
was
than it would have
great.
been for someone else, but it was basically to establish the aroma that, in order to be in business, you have expenses.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I personally think that's fantastic. All right, so then what came after that?
from that, I left that. I started driving a taxi cab for quite a while.
Oh,
I drove for about close to 2 years. I was in school at the time. I was in a community college in Queens.
what were you going for?
Electrical engineering, but non-matriculating. I never got a degree.
Oh, okay. You were just in it to learn. You didn't worry about the paper.
Correct.
Okay.
So I left out all of the courses that didn't have anything to do with what I was interested in. And,
I like it. By the way, kids, that's an option.
Right? Yeah, it sure is. I try to preach that one, but it doesn't sell very well.
No.
And from driving a taxi cab, I was an electrician. I worked for an electrician in Manhattan for about 2.5 years, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in that vicinity. And I learned the electrical industry quite well. I
Okay.
did really well with it. I wanted to get off on my own, and I was actually moving to California because that was where I wanted to set up shop and start out from ground zero
Okay.
and start my own electrical company. It was at that time possible in San Diego to get a license with many fewer years than you needed in New York. New York at the time was 10 years. And
New York's always been tough, I guess.
yeah, I didn't want to work for anyone. I wanted to be on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't possible in that field in New York.
Right.
At that time, my father did not want me to leave, and
Mhm.
he broke down quite a bit. And he told me that if I found a business that I wanted to get into in New York,
Mm-hmm.
that he would help me out and he would lend me money to get started. And that started me in the photo industry. Started quite young.
And so you didn't go into start your own electrical company in
No.
Cali.
I left it, yeah.
All right, so you took the advance from your dad and you started a photo company?
Yeah, it was photo finishing. It was film processing. 1 hour photo was what it was originally.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so we used to take pictures and it was stored on silver halide crystals and a piece of acetate and a camera, and then you'd have to bring it somewhere to get it processed.
Right.
Prior to 1 hour photos, you would bring it to a drugstore and you'd wait a week to get your pictures back.
Oh, wow.
At that time, there were machines that were invented in Japan,
Mm-hmm.
brought in, and started a business in Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
in a shopping center. My father lent me the money to buy the machine,
Mm-hmm.
and worked very hard. Was in that for 27 years,
All right.
and expanded and had quite a number of stores and portrait studios, and I designed some machinery that we used in that business.
So you own some patents on top of this?
No, there were no patents. It was
Okay.
just took things that were available and modified them, because machinery was available to do this processing just in big labs, and big
Mhm.
labs you'd have to wait a week for
Right.
everything. The actual process was less than 1 hour. So I designed machinery that we were able to use basically what we could have bought for a big lab and convert it to use it in what we called a mini lab. And we started a portrait studio, and we had families coming in, taking pictures, holiday pictures, and they'd walk out with a package of pictures in 1 hour.
Wow.
And that was pretty much unheard of at the time.
So let me ask, what time was this?
Opened in March of 1985.
Okay. All right, yeah. So when I was a kid, I remember, yes, I'm dating myself here too, I do remember my parents having to send photos out, but back then it only took a few days. So we're talking like the late 80s, early 90s, and then eventually it was, the 1 hour photo machines. I guess they got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you could fit them in the drugstore, and then then you had the 1 hour photo everywhere. I actually remember those little photo mats, those little booths that used to sit in the middle of parking lots.
Sure.
Yeah. Were you ever involved with those, or?
No, but those were not 1 hour. Those were at the end of the run, they were kind of 24-hour.
Okay.
As long as it wasn't a weekend. But for early days, it was 7 days, then 5 days.
Right.
3 days, eventually back to 1.
Huh. Okay. All right. So then you did that for 20-something years, and is that when you started getting into real estate after that point, or while
real
you were
estate?
doing it?
Pretty much it. Not at the very end. The last probably 8 years of that was when it started really in real estate.
And it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to buy this property and it's just going to explode. I'm sure you took a few baths here and there.
I did. A lot of the real estate was purchased from my family. My father died in an airplane accident in 1995. I'm sorry, 1996. So I purchased some property from my mother and just expanded on it.
All right, so you seized the opportunities that were there. You just kept moving on, diversifying. Obviously, you sold your photo business before the digital era?
No, it pretty much dwindled down to nothing on its own.
Okay.
Rent just got so expensive, and it just didn't pay anymore. But I was already established in real estate. I knew that the day was coming that that business would die.
Right.
And eventually it just did.
Okay. All right.
Move on.
And now, in all of this, I know you've been flying now for a long time.
I've been flying a long time. It's a big part of my life.
And when did that start?
So I started at 14. I started against my parents' will. They didn't even know I was flying.
All right, no, wait, back up. Now, a lot of guys will sneak booze and drugs and girls. You snuck flying?
I did.
All right, that is hands down the most badass thing I've heard so far.
At the time, it was just passion. I really wanted to do it. My father was dead set against it. We lived in Brooklyn. It was a royal pain in the butt to get out to the airport to fly.
Which airport at the time?
It was called Zons. It was in Amityville. It's no longer there.
Oh, all right.
So it was a matter of long ride to get out. It was a bus ride and a subway ride, Long Island Railroad ride, and then a taxi ride.
Well, you really wanted it.
Pretty badly, and I used to have to sneak out. We had a bagel route that used to deliver bagels, and when I wanted to fly, I had to get someone else to take care of it for me. But that was my excuse for getting up so early in the morning.
Oh, okay. So that was actually your job was your cover to go jump into your passion.
Pretty much so, yeah.
I think that's absolutely amazing. So now, obviously, this year you flew at the, was it 4th of July or Memorial Day?
Memorial Day,
Jones Beach show, and you've done that for a number of years now, haven't you?
I think it's 15 years now.
All right, and you also teach flying.
I teach flying, and I'm also an examiner right now for the FAA.
Right, I remember that was actually fairly recent, wasn't it?
It's actually only last month now that it's official.
Okay, all right, because I remember you said you were working towards it. You were at one point you were taking the prerequisites and all that other stuff.
No schooling involved.
Right. Okay, so now how long have you been doing the stunt flying for?
Aerobatics, I started almost immediately. I had to wait till my 17th birthday to get my license. I soloed, which means you can only fly by yourself, no passengers, at 16. And it was pretty boring waiting for my 17th birthday, so I started aerobatics at 16.
Okay, all right. So were you like just doing it for fun, or were you actually in shows at some point?
No, the shows only came much, much later. Originally, it was just for fun. Very early afterwards, I bought an aerobatic airplane, and I started competing. And competition was kind of my life for a long time. And that eventually got me on the U.S. team. Top 5 men in the country get picked for the United States team. Right. And I was on the team for 3 years.
What 3 years was that? Was that in the 2000s?
99, 2000, 2001.
99 to 01. Okay, all right. All right, so then you've been doing that. Now, and if I remember correctly, you said you had ended up testing some new engines at some point?
Airframes and engines.
Airframes and engines. Yeah, and apparently, because I'm going to drop a link to a video. You did an interview with somebody talking about a mishap you had a few years back.
Oh, there have been so many over the years. Being a test pilot,
right?
Testing new engines, it happens in aerobatics.
But when you had to land on DPA,
the Deer Park Avenue was one of many off-airport landings. But yes, that was one.
Yeah, well, I gotta give you credit for that. I mean, that was absolutely insane, and the fact that you managed to land his airplane on one of our major thoroughfares out here on Long Island, making sure not to get anyone hurt in the process, because you knew you were in trouble at that point, right?
Well, I would say so. The engine literally exploded, and the blades on the propeller came off in the air. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So rather than bail out, this man flew his plane down a major thoroughfare in order to make sure that there was no casualties or no loss of life or serious injuries, and everybody made it out okay, you included.
Yeah, there wasn't a scratch on me really, or the airplane. Unfortunately, later on we found that when one of the blades came off, it nicked the bottom of a wing. But no, the plane was unscratched.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, honestly, I still find that astounding. And if you, I'm gonna drop the link from that other person's interview. You hear the audio. This man was just calm. His engine just exploded. The blades went, and he's just like, okay, this is what I've got to do now. And I want to circle that back around to the ups and downs you've had to deal with in business when things have gone wrong. Who is it? It was Warren Buffett who says, if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money.
Very true.
Right? So you've been able to take that, have you been able to take that calm demeanor, when you're dealing with problems in the air, and apply it to your business life?
Somewhat. I'm really good when I have control over something. Very good. Unfortunately, in business, you don't always have control. A lot of times you're relying on other people, and that probably is a weakness of mine, being able to deal with somebody else making a decision and having to wait the time out, because my decisions are usually very quick.
Right.
And I react accordingly. But waiting for someone else is one of my detriments.
Okay, so right away we got his Achilles heel. He doesn't like to wait. He wants to go. Are you familiar with the Navy SEALs 40% rule?
No, I'm not.
It's that they call it the 40% rule because when you have roughly sometimes 40% of the information, you have to make a tactical decision. You don't have the full picture, but you have to go with as best you can do. Is that kind of like your instinct, or you go with your gut, or do you go with your head? How do you make these kinds of decisions that you say you want to make quicker?
I think, being in business and taught me to walk into a room and to be aware of everything that surrounds me. In a retail business, there's so much going on. There's all kind of problems developing, and I think to be successful in it, you have to find them before they get out of control. Whether it's an employee that's not doing their proper job, or someone stealing, or machinery breaking. So I think that's something that gives you kind of a really wide open vision of what's going on around you, spatial awareness, and that's probably one of my strongest points.
All right, so you're not necessarily getting bogged down in the weeds and the details, but you're noticing little things that can metastasize into bigger problems.
That's correct.
And you're able to compartmentalize that? Do you triage all that in your head and say, okay, I have to deal with this, or so-and-so has to deal with that, or how do you break it down from there?
I'm, if anything, really good at making those decisions about grabbing whatever information I have, making the best of it, even in the worst situations. Again, as long as I have control over it. So that's something that I feel like I need to have total control in order to make those decisions. It just comes out.
Right.
It's just spur of the moment. It's not a checklist. It's not a memorized procedure.
Just deal with it right now.
Right. And if it's something mechanical, I try to dissect mechanically what's going on, what could lead to it, what could be causing it.
Right.
How far back into a system do we have to go to find the problem?
Okay.
And that's something I'm pretty quick at.
All right. So obviously your life in the sky and dealing with things mechanically, you've been able to apply into your business life in retail and in real estate. So you've kept your, you've it sounds to me like you've really kept everything somewhat holistic. You've rolled everything together. You've just been, you don't think, compartmentalize, I guess I would say, is you don't think of, oh, this is my flying life and this is my mechanical life. You let all these skills kind of blend together into whatever you're doing.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah. And you feel that's given you the edge all these years as you've pushed forward?
It's given me an edge. It's there are people that are a lot better than me, but for what I do, it's I think it keeps me going, keeps my head going at a relatively high speed. Again, as long as I don't have to wait.
Right.
I'm very, very good at being able to put things together. Long term, not so good.
Okay. All right, so that was actually going to be one of my next questions is, do you know what you want to do from here? Or you've got a good stride and you're just going to keep going?
A lot of the things that I've used to make a living over the years, I was not crazy about. I didn't go to work with a smile on my face, and I kind of wish I did. So I'm trying to let my life kind of take me in a direction where I do what I enjoy more. I don't think I'll ever retire. I plan on working till I'm done. But in the meantime, at least like to find something that I can wake up in the morning and be excited about going to work for.
Okay, and so what's that right now? What's getting you excited?
Flying, like I said, has been my life. I have a tremendous amount of hours. I fly just about every day. And being able to teach what I've learned is something that excites me. Some of the flying that I'm doing now is very exciting, and I'm making some of a living off of it, which is really kind of what I've always dreamt of. So I enjoy, we do a lot of filming. Lately it's been a little bit slow, but filming of movies in the city, flying a helicopter, something I enjoy very, very much.
So wait, you mean you're flying the helicopter that's in the shot, or are you flying the chopper that's got the camera on it?
Both. Well, both, but we almost always have a camera on us. Very rarely is on the helicopter. Very rarely is it just the helicopter itself.
Right.
But I don't operate the camera. I just fly the helicopter. But some of the shots are pretty cool, and we get permits to go places and do things that almost no one else would ever get. And it's a lot of fun. It's really exciting. There's a lot of knowledge about flying to be able to do it safely, and it gets me excited.
That sounds amazing. Okay, now right away everyone's going to want to picture like a helicopter flying between the buildings in Manhattan. Please tell me you've done that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Done it many times.
That just sounds so cool to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people too. They're just going to picture that, because we've all done it as kids. We've taken a little plane and flew it through the chairs and the dinner table and everything. It's just picturing that in our heads, and you've actually gotten to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why you'd be excited getting out of bed in the morning.
That's great. Yeah, that's one of the days when you have a good job that you wake up and you just can't wait to get to work.
So do you have the gimbal like at the front end of the chopper and it like swings around, all that?
Yeah, it's a huge gimbal, and it's controlled by a camera operator.
And is he also in your company? Or
I don't own the company. I'm actually working for someone in that operation.
Oh, okay.
So, but to me, that's a lot of fun.
That just sounds a lot of fun. Now, actually, let me segue. Talking about the progression of time and technology. Now, a lot of people have been using drones, and the technology is getting smaller, and you can have 4K cameras on these drones. Do you think that there will still be a place for that for actual helicopter pilots up there?
So that's why we're slowing down now. In New York City right now, drones are illegal. You're not allowed to film any motion pictures with drones within the New York City limits. They're pushing hard to change it. Outside of New York City, it's been changed. The majority of the shots are with drones. I do a business I left at. I have a partner in that we do have a drone business that we shoot with drones. But as far as if the helicopter's in the scene, you can't get away from that.
Right.
So that will always be there. But as far as the actual shooting, in most cases it's much easier to use a drone than to get a helicopter. Much less expensive.
Right.
And you don't need a landing site for it. You just pull the drone back put some new batteries in and keep flying.
Right. So all right. So that's the progression of time, and you already see where that's going. You've already branched out into those ventures, keeping yourself dynamic, and I think that's something. Our audience really needs to pay attention to. If there's anything that you could hopefully learn from David's experience right now, is dynamism. Is just being as versatile as possible, seeing where the landscape goes, but at the core, also you've seemed to hold true to who you are this entire time. You knew you had that entrepreneurial drive. You know that you have high energy. You know that you want to move, and you didn't, for other people's sake, stifle yourself.
Right.
And that's something Gary Vaynerchuk, the marketing major guru, has talked about, is that there's a lot of people who will hold back from doing things because of their parents, their family, and it's something that scares a lot of people. And yet you went forward into that. You snuck flying, and then at some point you said to your dad, no, I'm going to go, I'm going to do my own thing, and you work things out, and I'm sure smooth things out eventually with him. So you found that dynamic and that balance, and I can't imagine it was easy at first.
It definitely wasn't easy, but anything that really becomes successful in life with is usually not easy. I mean, some people have some lucky runs, but it's rare and few and far between.
Right. So, I mean, would you say that what would you say you're most grateful for? That's a very broad blanket question, but what would you say at this point in your life, what are you most grateful for?
Wife and children.
Mm-hmm. Perfect answer. Yeah. Second on the list?
Second on the list, flying. My ability to fly. I'm lucky. It's not only flying. It's really operating anything mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
I raced boats for a long time. Really anything that I get my hands on that as an operator, I'm quite good at. I'm a pretty decent driver, and that's really I guess one of my fortunes that I was born with.
That ability to fuse yourself with a machine, and yeah.
I mean, it could even be operating heavy equipment, anything that really has controls, and your mind gets to think about multiple things at the same time.
I like that, and again, to go back, let me ask you this, what would your best advice be to the younger version of you who's growing up today in this generation?
Set your alarm clock for 7 o'clock. Every morning, no matter what, get up.
Mm-hmm.
Just get up. None of this sleep until 10, 11, 12 o'clock. We had a rule in my house. It was really strict. And my kids, I haven't been able to pass it on, unfortunately. But I was allowed to sleep as late as I wanted on any weekend, as long as it wasn't past 7. And it was very strict.
Okay.
And it set a really good precedent.
All right, so I actually really like that. There's a lot of people who have said, a lot of other successful entrepreneurs have said the same thing, is get up early. Whether you stay up late or not is your business, but get up early, move with the sun, move with the world.
Never be late. Never show up late.
Mm-hmm.
I think rule number 1 to success really is being on time. Be early, just be ready to go. If you're trying to impress your boss, and you're supposed to be in at 10 o'clock and you're showing at 10:01, doesn't do the same thing as waiting outside the door at 9:55.
Mm-hmm.
And that stands out in people's minds. It really does.
Right.
A lot of times you'll have major meetings and people will show up late, and it's frustrating if you're an on-time person. You just learn to deal with it, but you will prevail.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course we know things happen, but you don't want to make a habit of things happening to you. Right. And if you always give yourself that cushion, then you'll still be on time, right?
I agree, yeah.
Yeah. Just a little note on a little caveat, a little practical advice there. And you have set a great example, I think, for the generation following, to just always go, always do, be active, be energetic. And if you're not that kind of person, let me go into that. There are some people who are just not very energetic and dynamic, but would you say that there's a way for them to find their own advantage? Sure,
I know a lot of successful people who are pretty laid back. I can't tell you what's right and what's wrong. You know,
Right.
just my experience has been, and I'm very adamant about being on time and you know, getting the ball rolling early and being prepared. You know, if you show up for a job that needs tools, every possible tool you should have with you. You shouldn't want to have to run out and buy something or have someone bring it to you. Just be prepared to do the job, and you know, show up once, finish it, and get out of there.
All right. So get up early, get there on time, prep ahead, and finish your job.
Absolutely.
So these are David's 4 cardinal rules for success. And wherever you are in your journey, again, like he said, you know, can't tell you what's right or wrong. You're gonna have your own energy. You're gonna have your own dynamic. But I can honestly say, if you do these 4 things, and I would like to think that I've done these 4. Like today, I brought an extra boom, an extra gift. I wasn't exactly sure. I brought a cord, like all the stuff that I had to bring to come to David's and do all this stuff. I would like to think that I'm at least taking his advice.
Fully prepared.
Fully prepared, man.
Feels good.
All right, so that's, by the way, going to be the title of this, is Fully Prepared.
Awesome.
David Windmiller, Fully Prepared. David, thank you again very, very much.
My pleasure, man.
All right, so closing remarks from Hero's Breath. I want to again mention, or I don't actually think I did mention, and I probably should have when I started. This podcast is, of course, sponsored by the Phi Center. That's PHICENTER.NYC. So go check them out. They're an integrative holistic practice set up in Manhasset. And of course, we want to give a big thank you to James Morano of jamesmorano.com. He is our editor for our audio, and also gives me some pointers on the video, things I need to do better. And I'm trying, James, I promise I'm trying. And of course, if you want to support the Hero's Breath podcast, you can go to the website, to the blogs. You can go to the video for this episode on YouTube, and in the description there are product links you can check out to Amazon. If you buy those product links, we get a little percentage off the top, and that would help us run this beautiful show for all of you. So again, David, thank you very much for being here.
Very welcome.
Your experience is very much appreciated, and so is your time. From Matt and David, I want to say thank you to everybody. Signing off. Have yourselves a fantastic evening. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.